When I signed the papers to buy my ex-wife's old house, I told myself it was about closure. That's what I said to the realtor, to my friends, to my therapist. But deep down, I think it was about guilt. Her name was Lena. We were married for 8 years, 8 long, complicated years filled with laughter, betrayal, and a kind of love that sometimes felt more like drowning than floating. She left me after finding out about my affair. A few months later, she died in that same house. Officially, it was ruled a gas leak, but when I saw the house again for the first time since the funeral, something in my stomach twisted. It didn't feel like an accident. The house was a 2-story Victorian in a quiet part of Vermont, surrounded by birch trees and fog that never seemed to lift. I remember standing in the driveway, looking up at the windows. Her curtains were still there, white lace, gently moving even though the air was still. Inside, the smell hit me first. Not rot, not mold. Something else, something faintly sweet, like flowers that had been dead too long. The realtor smiled awkwardly. Beautiful property, right? They say she loved this house. I nodded, pretending not to notice the way she avoided the second-floor window. That was Lena's room. I moved in a week later. For the first few days it was fine. Lonely, but fine. I'd sit in the kitchen late at night reading or scrolling through old photos of her on my phone. There was this one photo. Her standing by the porch, smiling, her hair catching the afternoon sun. I stared at that photo a lot. But one night, I heard something. A slow creak from upstairs. Footsteps. I froze. The house had been empty for nearly a year before I moved in. I told myself it was the wood settling, old pipes, the wind. But the footsteps came again, steady, measured, crossing the length of the hallway above me. Then a soft thump, like a door closing. I grabbed a flashlight and went upstairs. Every door was open except one, Lena's old bedroom. The knob was cold under my hand, unnaturally so. I pushed the door open slowly. The room was exactly as she'd left it. Her vanity table, her mirror, her perfume bottles, all covered in a thin layer of dust. The bed was neatly made, though I hadn't touched it. And there on the nightstand was a photo of us, one I didn't remember ever taking. In it, I was standing behind her, hands on her shoulders. But my face was blurred, distorted, as if the camera had shaken, or as if I wasn't supposed to be there. I left the room and closed the door. Hard. Over the next few days, things got stranger. Sometimes I'd come home to find lights on in rooms I hadn't entered. Sometimes I'd wake up and find doors open that I knew I'd locked. Once I found muddy footprints leading from the front door up the stairs. Bare feet. I stopped sleeping upstairs. One night, as I lay on the couch downstairs, I heard whispering. Soft, feminine, coming from the ceiling above me. I turned off the TV. The whispering stopped. But when I turned it back on, the reflection in the black screen showed something impossible. A woman standing behind the couch. Her hair was wet, her skin pale as candle wax, her head tilted just slightly to the side. Lena, I whispered. The reflection smiled, but when I turned around, there was no one there. I should have left that night. I wanted to. But every time I tried to pack, something went wrong. The lights would flicker. The doors would slam shut on their own. Once, when I tried to leave, the front door wouldn't open at all. The handle turned, but the door stayed shut like it had been nailed to the frame. When I looked out the window, the driveway was gone. I mean gone. Just trees. Endless trees, stretching out into darkness. I stood there, heart pounding, until I heard a soft voice behind me. You never really left me, did you? I spun around. No one. But the air was colder now, and the smell of her perfume, jasmine and something metallic, filled the room. The voice came again, closer this time. You said you'd stay forever. That night, I dreamed of her death, the fire, the screaming, the house filled with smoke. Only in the dream she wasn't calling for help. She was calling my name. When I woke up, there was soot on my hands. Real soot. I ran to the kitchen sink and scrubbed until my skin turned raw. When I looked up, I saw her reflection in the window. She was standing outside, smiling. "You finally came home," she whispered through the glass. The next thing I knew, I was outside, barefoot, the cold biting into my skin, but there was no one there. The snow around the porch was untouched. I went back inside, locked the door, and turned every light on. And then I saw it. On the wall above the fireplace, written in soot. "I forgive you." The letters were still dripping. I didn't leave the house for days after that. My phone stopped working. The internet went down. It was like the world outside didn't exist anymore. Sometimes I'd see movement in the corners of my eyes. Lena walking past doorways, brushing her hand along the walls, her wedding ring glinting faintly in the dark. And sometimes, when I spoke, I'd hear her whisper back, echoing me, mocking me. The last straw came one night when I heard footsteps running down the hallway. I grabbed the flashlight and followed. They led me to the basement door. It was open. A faint light glowed from below, warm, flickering, like candlelight. I descended the stairs slowly. The air grew heavier with each step, thick with the smell of burnt wood and perfume. At the bottom of the stairs, the basement looked different. There was furniture, a table, 2 chairs, and on the wall opposite me, dozens of photographs. All of me, sleeping, eating, sitting in the dark. Every picture taken from inside the house, recently, and in every single one, behind me, Lena stood in the shadows. I stumbled back, knocking over a chair. That's when I noticed the last photograph pinned dead center. It was taken from right where I was standing. In it, Lena stood behind me, smiling. Before I could turn around, I felt her hand on my shoulder. "Now we can finally be together," she whispered. The flashlight went out. The last thing I remember is her breath on my neck. Cold, damp. When I woke up, it was morning. Sunlight streamed through the windows. The basement was empty. No photos, no candles, no sign of her. The front door was open again. I stumbled outside, gasping like I'd been underwater for hours. The world looked normal. The driveway, the road, the trees, all back where they belonged. I got in my car and drove until I ran out of gas. I never went back. But sometimes when I drive through Vermont and see a house with lace curtains, I swear I catch a glimpse of her in the window, still smiling, still waiting. And I know that one day, when I'm weak enough to go back, the house will still be there, and it will never let me leave again. It started on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I had just moved into a small, century-old farmhouse on the outskirts of Tennessee, the kind of place that looked peaceful from the outside, but carried a weight you could feel as soon as you stepped in. The floors creaked like they were sighing under the pressure of forgotten years. The wallpaper was yellowed, peeling in corners like dead skin. Still, I thought I could fix it. A few coats of paint, some furniture, and I'd call it home. For the first few nights, everything was fine. Peaceful even. I slept soundly, the crickets humming outside my window, the wind brushing through the trees. But by the end of the first week, I began to hear them. The voices. At first, I thought it was a radio. A faint, distant murmur coming from beneath the floorboards in my bedroom. Low, whispery, like a conversation held through a wall. I'd pause what I was doing and listen. Sometimes it sounded like laughter. Other times, crying. I even checked the crawl space below the house. It was empty, save for cobwebs, dirt, and the smell of something damp and rotten. I went back upstairs, convinced it was just the old pipes groaning. But that night, as I lay in bed, the whispering started again. This time, closer. It was 2:47 a.m. I know because I looked at the clock the second I heard my name. Daniel. It was faint, but clear, like a breath against my ear. I froze. My throat tightened, heart hammering in my chest. Then it came again. Daniel. I sat up, scanning the room, my eyes darting to every shadow. The whisper was coming from below, from the floorboards right beneath my bed. I jumped out, grabbed my flashlight, and crouched down. I pressed my ear to the wood. Nothing, just silence. I shook my head, laughed nervously, and told myself I was dreaming. But I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning I decided to check under the house again. The crawl space was narrow and cold, with enough room to crawl on hands and knees. Dust clung to the beams, and cobwebs brushed against my face as I shone my flashlight around. Halfway through, I saw something glinting under a wooden beam. It was a small silver locket, half buried in the dirt. When I opened it, there was a tiny black and white photo inside. A young girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, her face expressionless. On the back, scratched into the metal, were 2 words, "Under here." I stared at it, a cold sweat forming on my neck. Then I heard it, a soft thud from above. Someone, or something, had just walked across the floor directly above me. But I lived alone. I scrambled out of the crawl space, mud streaking my arms and face. Inside the house, the air felt heavier, stale, electric. I checked every room. The kitchen, empty. The hallway, empty. The living room, empty. But when I got to the bedroom, I noticed something I hadn't before. A small crack in the wooden floorboards near where I'd heard the voice. Something dark was seeping through it. At first I thought it was oil, but when I knelt down, the smell hit me. Metallic. It was blood. I staggered back, heart pounding. The crack widened before my eyes, the wood bending inward like something was pushing from underneath. Then the whisper came again. Help. Me. I ran. Out of the room, down the stairs, out the front door. I didn't stop until I was halfway down the road, gasping for air, hands shaking. I called the sheriff, told him someone might be trapped under my house. He arrived an hour later, checked the crawl space with 2 deputies. They found nothing, no locket, no blood. The sheriff looked at me like I was losing my mind. "Old houses make strange noises," he said. "You been sleeping okay?" I didn't answer. That night I stayed at a motel, but even there I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I could still hear the faint echo of that voice in my head. Daniel. I tried to sell the house the next week. No one wanted it, not after the local rumors started spreading. People said the farmhouse was built over a dried-up well where a child had drowned in 1932. Her name was Mary Allen. The story went that she'd been playing outside when the ground gave way beneath her. Her parents searched for days before finding her body wedged in the mud, her fingers clawed to the bone from trying to climb out. I didn't believe it until the second night back in the house. That's when I heard the crying. It started faintly, then grew louder. A child's sobs, muffled by the floorboards, echoing through the house. I sat in the corner, frozen, whispering, "Please stop, please stop." The crying turned into laughter. Then the voice, high, sing-song, and said, "You found my locket. Now find me." I barely slept. The next morning I ripped up the floorboards. Nails screeched, dust filled the air, my hands bleeding from the splinters. Beneath the boards I found a shallow space filled with dirt and broken wood. And something else. A small skeleton, curled into a fetal position, still clutching a piece of cloth that might have once been a dress. My stomach lurched. I stumbled back, my vision spinning. And then I saw it, carved into the wood above where the body lay. "Thank you." The temperature in the room dropped instantly. My breath came out in mist. And for the first time since I moved in, the whisper didn't come from below. It came from behind me. "Now stay with me." I ran again. This time, I didn't stop to pack anything. I just drove. But no matter how far I went, the voice followed, sometimes through the radio, sometimes from the back seat, just on the edge of hearing. "Daniel, It's been 3 years now. I live in a new state, in a new apartment. No basements, no wooden floors. But at night, when the room goes quiet, I can still hear faint knocking beneath me. 3 soft taps, then a pause, like someone, somewhere, is still trying to get out. And I know, if I ever listen too closely, I'll hear her whisper again. You found me once, Daniel. You can find me again. I've been sleeping with my ex-wife for almost 3 years now. And before you ask, no, we didn't get back together. She's been dead since 2022. Her name was Melissa. We were married for 6 years before the divorce. She was bright, sharp, full of fire. Too much, maybe. The kind of woman who'd argue with lightning and somehow win. But after she found out about my affair, everything collapsed. She left me in a storm of shattered glass and screaming silence. A few months later, she was gone. A car accident on Route 61. Her car hit a tree, flipped twice, and burst into flames. They said she died instantly. I went to her funeral, stood by her parents, tried to look like a grieving man, though the guilt I carried was real, heavy, suffocating. I remember standing over her grave, whispering, I'm sorry. But the wind was the only thing that answered. That night I started sleeping on the couch, and that's when she came back. The first night was subtle. I woke up around 3 a.m., that strange hour when everything feels hollow and wrong. The TV was off, but the reflection on the screen looked wrong. It showed 2 figures. I was one of them, lying on the couch. The other was a shadow beside me, curled up like someone sleeping under the blanket. But when I looked beside me, no one was there. The air smelled faintly of lilac, Melissa's perfume, the one she used to wear to bed. I sat there frozen, my throat tight, my heart hammering against my ribs. I told myself it was exhaustion, grief, maybe guilt manifesting in strange ways. But deep down, I knew better. The second night, I woke again at 3 a.m. This time, the blanket was pulled halfway over me. The air was warm, heavy, and the pillow beside me was indented, as if someone had been lying there. I heard a faint sigh, right next to my ear. You still move in your sleep? A whisper, soft, teasing. So familiar it froze my blood. I sat up fast, spinning around, searching the room. But the couch was empty, the air still. Yet I swear, for one fleeting moment, the couch cushions shifted like someone had just stood up. And then came the faint sound of footsteps, moving down the hallway toward the bedroom we once shared. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room, staring at the hallway, trying to convince myself I was going crazy. By morning, the air smelled stronger. Lilac again, thick, suffocating like she was everywhere. I even checked the bedroom, and there on the dresser was her wedding ring, the same one I'd buried with her. I fell to my knees, trembling. That's when I realized what was happening. Melissa hadn't come back to haunt me. She'd come back to live with me. I tried to ignore her. Days passed and I focused on work, pretending I didn't feel her presence. But it grew stronger. Sometimes I'd find the coffee already made when I woke up. 2 cups, 1 half full. Sometimes I'd hear the shower running, steam seeping out from under the bathroom door. And once, when I looked into the fogged mirror, I saw her standing behind me. Her eyes were soft, sad. Why did you stop loving me? She whispered. When I turned around, she was gone. But on the mirror, written in the condensation, were the words, I never left. I thought about leaving the house, selling it, starting over. But every time I packed my bags, the lights would flicker and the air would turn cold. One night, as I carried a box to the door, the front door slammed shut by itself. Hard, the kind of force that rattled the frames off the walls. Then her voice, soft, pleading, but layered with something else, something sharp. Don't leave me again, Daniel. The box fell from my hands, and for the first time I spoke back. What do you want from me, Melissa? Her laugh echoed through the house, a low, hollow sound that made my skin crawl. I just want things to be how they used to be. From that night onward, she made sure they were. The TV turned on to her favorite show every evening. Her old wine glass appeared on the coffee table, and sometimes when I came home I'd find the bed already made, with 2 indents on the pillows. But the worst part wasn't what she did. It was how real she began to feel. Some nights, I'd wake up and feel her fingers brushing through my hair, her breath warm against my neck. At first I flinched. Now I just let it happen. Because the truth is, her touch feels the same. Her scent, her warmth, all of it. Except one thing. She's cold. Last week, something changed. I woke up and saw her. Actually saw her. She was lying beside me, her back turned, long dark hair spread across the pillow. The moonlight poured over her pale shoulder, and I could see the faint outline of her spine. But the skin looked strange, gray, bruised. I whispered her name. She didn't move. When I reached out to touch her, my hand passed through her shoulder like smoke. But when I pulled back, I saw my fingers were wet, dark red. I stumbled out of bed, gasping, staring at my hands. Then I looked back, and the bed was empty again. Only the faint scent of burning rubber lingered in the air, the smell from her car accident. 2 nights later I woke up choking. The air was thick with smoke and the room glowed faintly orange. She was there again, standing at the foot of the bed, her face half burned, one eye gone, her lips twisted into something between a smile and a scream. "Why did you leave me in the fire, Daniel?" I screamed, stumbling back, clutching the wall. "I didn't. I wasn't there." She took a step closer, her voice soft again, calm. "You were supposed to love me. Forever." And then she disappeared. Just like that. The smoke faded and I was alone again, gasping in the dark. But the next morning, when I looked at my arm in the mirror, I saw her handprint burned into my skin. Now I don't fight it anymore. I go to bed at the same time every night on her side of the bed. I keep her photo on the nightstand. I whisper goodnight before I close my eyes. And every morning I wake up with the blanket tucked around me, her scent heavy in the air, her whispers brushing my ear. She never hurts me. Not anymore. As long as I don't try to leave. I think maybe that's what she wanted all along. Not revenge, not haunting, just company. And every night when I close my eyes, I feel the mattress dip beside me. A soft hand slides into mine. And though my body shivers at her touch, I squeeze her fingers back. Because deep down, I know I deserve this. Last night, as I drifted off, I whispered, "I love you, Melissa." She whispered back, her voice soft and close. "I know, darling, but you don't have to say it anymore." Then she turned to face me, her burned face inches from mine. "Because you're never waking up again."